Um, there you go. And also just to be aware that the chat option is not available for this meeting. I'm not quite sure why, but I just wanted you to be aware that that is not an option. We are going to step you through a document is going to be the bulk of our meeting today. And I think there'll probably be some time at the end for some questions. I want to maybe tee this off, first of all, just to recognize our state legislators who have joined us. We have Representative Helm, Representative Reardon, and Representative Owens. Also in attendance is Chair Meg Reeves of the Water Resources Commission. I may be missing some folks. I've not looked through the entire list, so I apologize if I've missed recognizing someone. We're not going to go through introductions of everybody. There's a few too many people on this meeting today. But I wanted to, what we're going to step you through today is a document that is reflects some of the important conversations that are going to be in play over the next year and a half, 2 years. Some of them are directly connected to our budget, the new budget from 2021. Some are ongoing activities, some are state-led, some are otherwise. It is not intended to reflect all of the activities that are going to be happening in water going forward this biennium. There's a lot on our plates, and this document is not intending to be comprehensive, but it instead is really trying to reflect what the representatives and myself and Maida Lofsgarden before she left thought were important conversations that were connected to the 100-year water vision, connected to the integrated water resources strategy, and that we thought it would be important to help us all kind of understand those moving parts, what those different efforts are, and how they are related and how they are separate. So that is going to be the bulk of the conversation today. Before I share my screen and start stepping you through that document, I wanted to make sure that if the representatives, Helm, Owens, or Reardon had any initial comments they wanted to make before we got into the meat of the presentation.
I'll say just a couple words, Tom. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your day to absorb this information. It is going to help us as a group through conversations that are starting now, that will go through the end of this year and into next year. I'll say a little bit more at the end about where I think we are as a state in terms of planning our water future. But at this time, I just wanted to thank all of you for participating. And I wanted to thank Representative Owens and Representative Reardon and Director Byler for the close working relationship we have had thus far. I think it's a really good sign. It's somewhat unprecedented in my experience in government to be working so closely with the executive and the agencies in the legislature all at the same time, rowing in the same direction. And I'd invite Mark and Jeff to say a word if they'd like to as well.
You want to go ahead, Mark, or I can, either one.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, well, again, I'd like to echo the chair's comments. It's just a wonderful occasion, and so glad that you're all here. You know, I think it's pretty fair to say that we're all very excited about the over $530 million in water investments at this session. And I hope that signals a broader recognition of the importance of water to our way of life, to our communities, and to our economy. And but it would be really tempting, I think, to talk about the projects that we know need to be done. In fact, we're working to develop the communications you're going to hear about I kept wanting to discuss project. I probably drove Rep Owens nuts on that, but I kept wanting to discuss those projects or determine what outcomes, what predetermined outcomes, so we could make sure that we get the answers we need. And then what we're doing though is not that. It's much more critical in any single project, any policy, any outcome that I might come up with. And so I think what we're about to set off on is what I expect to be a meaningful discussion about how to govern and budget water in a system that includes more voices and the many voices that are necessary to truly ensure that the right questions are being asked. And, if I've learned anything in my travels across Oregon, it's that each community's water issues are unique and that the locals know the problems and the possibilities way better than any of us sitting here today. So now, can we then come together to develop a system that elevates each region's story and in the process ensures that statewide we make the greatest and the best use of our precious fiscal and natural resources? And I think I'm confident as Oregonians, we can do that. So I look forward to learning from you and working with you as we go forth over the next period of time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Now I feel underdressed and underprepared. And also, if you notice, there's several Mark Owens in the Zoom. So lesson learned, everybody. If you share your invite, they might log on and your name might show up. But I appreciate everybody joining us this afternoon. It looks like a great turnout. We've been working, as Representative Helms said, with the department to try to figure out what does this interim water conversations look like. Is a historic investment that each and every one of you guys played a role in on securing for our water future in the state of Oregon. We're going to have some challenging times in water. And I just want to call out to the state of Oregon this year with the drought, the amount of struggles we had in agriculture, the amount of struggles that we had in potable municipal systems and wells, and even ecological. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that's unusual. That might be more the norm. And maybe we're transitioning into a different water management era in the state of Oregon, trying to figure out how we partner with local communities in the state and try to figure out some of these complex water challenges that we have some base funding to start to have that conversation. So look forward to Director Byther laying out some of the conversations that we started and look forward to, honestly, a real robust conversation in the next 16 months to see how we can move this ball even farther. Thank you for the time, Tom.
Thanks, Representative. And now, of course, we know how you're able to get so much done because there's more than one of you. That now it all makes sense. So I'm going to share my screen here in just a second, but I want to reiterate that as Representative Reardon mentioned, really massive, fantastic investment in water for 2021, and there's a lot to do. My agency alone has 38 new positions. We've got a lot of new recruitments that we are busy working on, and we have a lot of new assignments. We have over 40 discrete projects ranging from some of the efforts that you'll see here shortly to other types of task forces or setting up and standing up and implementing new programs. So there's a lot going on, but we have a lot of important conversations ahead. And I want to just here share with you how we've been thinking through how some of these important conversations relate to each other. So I'm going to share my document. Can someone give me a head nod that that's viewable? Thank you. So I'm going to step folks through this document. I hope you can see it okay. We're not going to take questions while, if you'll be patient, I'll try to step everyone through this. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end. The main point here is to help you all kind of see be aware of these important conversations. The meaty conversations lie ahead within these processes that I'll describe. But so on your screen, you should see 3 columns. On the left is a series of interrelated engagement and information gathering processes. I'll talk about those in a minute. Those processes, again, this was a document that the legislators and myself and Maida Lofsgarden pulled together, again, with the hope of trying to help elevate all of our awareness around these important processes and how they're interrelated in our view. The middle column is a series of objectives, and on the right-hand side are the entities or people or processes that we hope that these conversations and efforts will inform. And I'm actually going to start on the right-hand side. These processes we hope will inform conversations, proposals, legislative or budget for the 2023 legislative session. We think there's a real opportunity for that. We also see that these processes can help inform the update of the integrated water resources strategy. I'll talk a little bit more about that because the IWRS is, I really view it as a very high level, very comprehensive strategic document that is both an element that we have a process around, but it's also can be informed by some of these other processes. And I'll talk a little bit about that more in a second. And then third, in terms of how these engagement efforts and information gathering processes, who and what they can inform are Oregon's leaders, local leaders who are focused on and understand the importance of water, elected officials at the local level, the state level, at the federal level. There are a wide range of shapes and forms of leadership within Oregon, and our hope is that those leaders become better informed and more interested in how important it is for us at the local and state level to be engaged in and working on water issues for today and for our future. In the middle column, I want to just step you through a series of objectives that we thought were important that these processes will feed. At the top, and I'm going to maybe see if I can make this a little bit larger for folks. Now, here we go. I hope that's a little bit better. In the middle column, these processes and engagement efforts will inform data and information for effective decision-making at local, regional, and state levels. This is a real recognition of one of the fundamental elements of the framework of the integrated water resources strategy. And I think it's just inherent common sense that we need good information, we need good data for good decision-making. And that is one of the goals, I think, of certainly within the IWRS and within the state. And we're hopeful that these processes will help support that objective. Another objective is increased recognition of the importance of investing in water and investing in and managing water. Again, awareness and understanding of how important water is. I think you all know, water can be neglected and people take it for granted. And it only until there's some kind of disaster or catastrophe or drought, when water's not there, it quickly becomes one of the highest priorities that you can imagine. And increasing the recognition of the importance of investing in water and managing water in times when there's not a disaster or an emergency, I think is of utmost importance for Oregon to be focused on the issues that are going to take time and effort to resolve. Third objective is community leaders representing the diversity of Oregon are engaged in strategic planning and management in their communities. In my mind, this focuses both on making sure that, or doing what we can to have the leadership on water efforts, but also to make sure that these leaders are local. We need local voices, we need local leadership, and we need that engagement around planning and problem solving so that these communities around the state can realize a secure water future. Fourth on this list, support continued collaborative efforts of water champions representing diverse interests in Oregon water. In my mind, this objective is recognizing that we have numerous existing efforts of folks working on complex water issues, planning, doing collaborative work, and that we are aware that that's happening. We're supportive of that. And these conversations and these processes that we'll have in play that I'll talk about here in a minute in the left-hand column are not intended to undermine those existing efforts. We want to be supportive of those efforts. And at the bottom of this list, but in some respects, perhaps most importantly, the objective to have effective state-supported regional governance system and framework for planning and implementation, strategic prioritization, and investments in water. This is, we'll talk about this more, and this is connected in particular to the state-supported regional water planning and management table conversations that we'll talk about in a little bit of detail here in a minute. But the notion around this is that is really the question of, can Oregon be doing better in terms of supporting planning, implementation of plans, prioritization of investments, and stronger investments in water in a range of different values in terms of how water is used. And I guess my short editorial on this is that there are systems, there are processes out there, but they are not, they're fairly disparate. There are federal programs, state programs, local programs. There are planning efforts that are underway. I think the question with this objective is there a better way for us to be going about this so that more communities in Oregon can have confidence that there's a mechanism by which they can plan for their water future and have confidence that they can pursue that through implementing that plan and through future water investments. So those are the objectives that we outlined. I would mention, and I apologize, I didn't mention this at the outset. We really, the legislators and myself, really feel like this is a draft. This is meant to be a baseline to help establish some awareness and expectations around the efforts that lie ahead. But we also encourage questions and comments, and if there are ways to improve this document, fantastic. I would mention, though, that the goal with this document is just to help people wrap their heads around the processes that are in play. And I think that where the rubber really will hit the road is in these different processes that I'm about to step into. So let's shift over to the left-hand column and finally get into the meat of what we identified as kind of key processes and efforts that will be happening over the next year and a half, 2 years. First, first I'll mention just the blue area was a way for us to kind of organize in our minds those initiatives, those efforts, those processes that are state-led. And in the green, we have processes that are state-funded, but are really local engagement. And in the last column are efforts that are really kind of locally led. And so that was just a way for us to organize in our heads. But the specific areas I'll go through starting at the top in the blue box. And you'll note the IWRS update and the state-supported regional water planning and management table both are in rectangles that are slightly larger than the others that are below. And that was intentional because in our minds, we saw both the IWRS and the regional table as a very kind of high level, big picture efforts that these other processes that are below it can help feed into. So that's the value, the symbolic value of those larger rectangles. With the IWRS update, many of you are familiar with integrated water resources strategy. That is a statutory, it was developed by the legislature. The Water Resources Department is in charge of kind of leading the development of the IWRS, and the commission, our commission approves it. It was first put in place in 2012. It was updated in 2017 and is due for another update in 2022 per the statute, 5-year updates. It is, for those of you who are familiar with the document, it is very high level and very comprehensive, dealing with water in all imaginable aspects, and is based on a very fundamental framework that we need to know. We need to have good data. We need to know what our needs are. We need to know what the drivers are. We need to understand the resource in order for us to be able to make good decisions on planning for and implementing efforts that will pursue and achieve a secure water future for Oregonians. So the IWRS update is pending. And I'm going to circle back to that in a minute because it is one of many processes that are in play. But I'll touch on that after I go through these other efforts. The next effort is the regional water planning table. This is also very important. I mentioned that it's, in my mind, very much connected to the objective at the bottom of this table. We're going to, there's a lot more to talk about this one, and I'm actually going to ask for your patience because I think I want to come back to this after I go through the other processes, because there's more to say about the regional table. We have some work that is going to be playing out here shortly that I want to mention to you all. But the bottom line for the regional table is that it's a work group that will be set up that will help us look at kind of high level systems by which communities can plan for and implement actions to achieve their secure water future. And so that's going to be an important conversation. And again, we'll talk about that in a little more detail in just a minute. I would mention that in my mind, the regional table really follows up on a goal under the 100-year water vision. In 2020, during the February session, there were 3 items under phase 2 of the vision, and one was to set up a work group to wrestle with some of the kind of systems-based conversations around how we invest in water in Oregon, how we manage water in Oregon. And this, in my mind, really carries that forward. There are 2 other items that were connected to the water vision in 2020 that didn't get funded and that, but are now funded. And those are the next 2 items in blue. The business case. Here we have resources for the Water Resources Department to do an RFP that would look at kind of the economic value of water around the state. The audience here really is, I'd say, elected officials and the general public, to help them understand just how important water is in their communities and what value it brings to those communities. Third element, again, that was a follow-up from the 100-year water vision work was the water data framework. And this is, in this case, DEQ has received funding to help move that ball down the field. And the notion here is that, again, data is so important for good decision-making. And the analysis under the data framework is, what can Oregon be doing better in terms of making sure that we have the water data available and water information available in a useful format and in a easily accessible framework or form. And so there's conversations ahead about what that might look like, how the different agencies that have water data can feed their information, perhaps through some kind of portal type of framework. We're in the very early conversations around that. But I want to put that on your radar screen. That is another effort that was supported with the 2021 budget. Something that didn't get wasn't supported in our budget, but it was an ongoing responsibility that feeds into the bigger picture here is the next item, the evaluation of place-based planning. Many of you are aware of the place-based planning pilots that we have had underway for a number of years now. The authorization for that program sunsets at the end of this biennium. We've been at the Water Resources Department had underway an evaluation of that program, as well as our project grants and loans funds that support projects and our feasibility grants. That evaluation will inform what action we might take in terms of legislative and budget requests in 2023. But also the work that we've done to date could help inform some of these other processes that will be underway in the left-hand column here. So we wanted to note that for folks. Another effort that will be happening this biennium that we wanted folks to be aware of that we think is related to the bigger picture here is Business Oregon and their infrastructure inventory. They are doing a statewide inventory that comprises more than just water infrastructure, but it will include water infrastructure. I think it's going to be a multi-year effort for Business Oregon to kind of set up a robust inventory, but they are working now towards re-upping and getting that inventory updated. And we wanted to put that on your radar screen again. It is another effort that is connected to this bigger picture around water. And the last thing in the blue column is House Bill 3293, which applies to natural resources agencies with granting functions to consider updates to their programs to make sure that community engagement is there's adequate community engagement within their communities within the applicants' communities, with an eye towards BIPOC communities and diversity. And those are efforts that will be underway over the course of the coming years and will likely take the form of rulemaking by a number of the natural resources agencies that have these types of programs. But we wanted you to be aware that that's out there as well. So shifting gears into the green box. These are a couple of state-funded efforts that are really very much collaborative engagement. The first is tribal engagement through the Water Resources Department budget and at the governor's request. We received funding to help engage with tribes. Many of you may know that the tribes also have been interested in that kind of engagement and have sent a letter to the governor in September, essentially asking for state agency tribal engagement around water. So we're very excited about that. And we very much look forward to setting up that table and see where those conversations take us and recognize that those conversations are going to be important and inform some of these other processes as we go forward. The second item in the green box, equitable water access. This is also one of the governor's requests in the governor's budget. And it provides funding for the Water Resources Department to work with underserved communities around community development and leadership development with BIPOC and other impacted communities. We're just beginning to engage with those communities on what that might look like. I think that it will hopefully lead to kind of a deeper awareness of water issues among those communities, and stronger and more frequent participation in public processes associated with water going forward by members of those communities. I would mention that for both the tribal engagement and the equitable water access, that these are items that are not limited to my agency, the Water Resources Department, but multiple agencies engaged in water will be involved in those conversations going forward. So getting down to the yellow box, wanted to mention important conversations happening locally, at the local level, at the county level, where county leadership are going to be developing community water needs forums. I'm not sure how many counties that they'll be looking to do that in. I think that's still a bit of a work in progress, but I think these are really important conversations to help at the local level to help understand what water needs are, and that's an important element that could feed into some of these other processes that we have underway this biennium. And the last element that I'll mention is really kind of a catch-all and is intended to recognize that there are ongoing efforts that we wanted to note and not sweep under the carpet. But we didn't name names, but I think many of you on this call probably have been involved in some of them. I would note that there's been the ongoing collaborative effort in the Deschutes Basin. There are other places where these types of water-related conversations are happening. We applaud them, we support them, and we wanted to note them here as kind of a catch-all category. So I am going to, I think I'm going to pause there and see if, well, actually, I'm going to loop back up to the top two in the blue, and then I'm going to shift over to the representatives to see if they have any additional comments. But I want to close the loop. I dangled out there that I would talk about the IWS and the regional table a bit more. First, let me just say with the IWS, one of the considerations that I've been thinking about with respect to the IWS and how it fits within this framework document that you see is that it is not only a process that we are needing to do in terms of the update, but it's also big enough that it is informed by some of these other processes. As I mentioned earlier, under the statute, we have 5-year updates, and one of the considerations that I am sensitive to and interested in as we look at that left-hand column and you see all these different efforts that are going to be underway is that there's a lot going on and a lot of different conversations. And this doesn't even include some of the other conversations, the work groups and task forces on specific policy issues that we will be starting up. And I do think that because of that, there's a lot of opportunity for confusion about who's doing what, which process means, why are we seeing all these different processes happening at the same time? So one of the things that I'm interested in and is to not have too many processes moving at the same time, especially if they overlap to a certain extent. Given that the IWS is so broad in its scope, and given that I'm interested in having some of these conversations that underlie the IWS help inform our update to the IWS, it's my intention to delay the update of the IWS. It doesn't mean we won't start it this biennium, but we will delay its completion beyond 2022, which I think is a prudent thing to do. And I think it will allow folks to focus, my staff as well as all of you, to focus your energy on some of these other processes and have these processes inform the ultimate update of the IWS. So I wanted to put that on people's radar screen that we are going to be delaying the update process. I'm not going to put a specific timeline on it right now. It's something we're still sorting through. But I just wanted folks to be aware that it's my intention that we do delay the update process so that we can sequence these different processes that may be a little more in a better fashion. So the last item I wanted to focus on is just to loop back on the regional table. And here, I want to emphasize, I think this is a really important conversation that we're setting up for all of us to engage in around how Oregon's governance system can best meet local needs over the long term. And what I wanted to put on your radar screen is that this effort, we hope, will start up. I think I mentioned this earlier at the beginning of the year. In the meantime, Oregon Consensus is going to be reaching out to quite a few folks as part of an assessment process that will start, I think, as early as this week. It will take probably a couple of months at least. I'm guessing because of the number of folks, of water interests that they're looking to connect with. And that assessment work is really intended to focus on getting thoughts, your thoughts and others, perhaps that aren't participating on this Zoom meeting today, on what that table should look like, how it should be organized, what the process should look like, and what the focus of the effort should be. So I wanted to put that on everyone's radar screen that outreach and assessment work is going to be starting up in earnest here soon. I also want to emphasize for folks that this regional table, again, are important conversations. But I want you all to be aware that, and I think the legislators are in agreement with me on this, is that this is not an unfettered exercise of trying to figure out how to redo everything that we have. We're working within a framework that we need to be realistic about, and by that I mean, as we think about how we can approach governance and systems to allow for more effective state-supported planning and implementation and management of water, we need to realize that we're doing that in the context of a number of federal laws, including the Clean Water Act and the Federal Endangered Species Act. And we're also working within the boundaries of state water law, the prior appropriation doctrine. It doesn't mean we can't be innovative and flexible, but we need to be mindful that we are working within those kinds of sideboards. So I wanted to put that on everyone's radar screen and as at the outset. So with that, I think I hope I've covered the pieces that we wanted to, and I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen and invite the representatives if they had any follow-up that they wanted to do.
Thanks, Tom. That was really great. We should probably acknowledge too that we have a shadow partner in this work in Meta Lofsgarten, who helped us with the initial concepts here and how to roll them out too. So I wanted to acknowledge her. Tom, I have some call to action comments that are probably better placed at the end of the meeting. I'll leave it to Jeff and Mark if they want to comment now, but I'd be happy for people to ask questions for a couple minutes if they want to.
I'll just say real quick that I really appreciate the presentation and work you put into this, Tom, and everybody else, but really feel this great sense of opportunity, but also urgency. This is critical work, and I already feel behind. But the one thing I don't think I heard clearly enough, and I think through this effort, I think Oregon can do a better job of aligning our investments with federal investments and being better prepared to work with our federal partners. So I don't want to lose sight of that. That's not what this framework is about, but the framework is about how to get organized to do that work. So I am always focused on the dollars, but so, okay. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Representative. So happy to take questions. If you could raise your hand, that would be helpful. I would just mention that if you feel a little disoriented around all of this, it's okay. It took a long time for us to pull this together. But I hope that it's helpful in terms of helping you better understand some of the moving parts that we thought were important to communicate. Peggy, I see your hand up.
First, I have to unmute. Of course, I'm always there. What I really wanted to follow up on was your comment about the integrated water resources strategy, having been a part of the prior two. The last time we did an update, we had very specific things that we felt had not been focused on. We had climate and drought as two things that we needed to make sure we focused on. So it seems to me reasonable that you do this delay, and I would support it. Not that I am invested in the work of the IWRS, but what I see is that we need to figure out what are the things that are missing from this really important strategic document that all the water agencies use. Before we move forward with just doing an update for update's sake. So thank you for that and appreciate this work today. I'll look forward to being a part of the conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. That's great advice. And I do think, again, we've had a lot of process and public engagement around our updates of the IWRS. And that's one of the things I'm concerned about launching too soon, given all these other efforts. But there is some work that we can do before that, I think, that can help us line up our how we want to focus on that update. And again, some of these processes will inform that. So thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Mary Ann.
Yeah, hey, sorry. I guess my question might be what everyone else who is sitting in silence is thinking as well, which is this is a lot of information, and I guess I'm unclear kind of what the next steps for providing feedback are, because I think I have a lot of feedback on a lot of individual pieces that feels a little off place for probably what you're looking for in 11 minutes of time. And so kind of what are the process steps in terms of making sure that you are getting good stakeholder engagement across the board as you're building out each of these pieces? Because I guess the thing that I worry about happening is, you have a few of these forums and all of a sudden it's, well, we had these forums and everybody had a chance for feedback and we went forward, when I'm not sure this is set up for the kind or level of feedback that I'd like to provide on as many large components as this has.
That's a really fair observation and question, and I don't think this forum really gives us the time to drill deeper into things. I guess what I would offer to you and anyone else is, I'd be happy, or our staff would be happy to talk with you guys outside of this meeting, set up some different times to talk through any of these processes a little bit more. It may depend on which item you're interested in. For example, the data framework, I think that would be a conversation that DEQ would need to be at for sure. But some of these other pieces are not Water Resources Department led. But for anything that has the department on the lead, I would offer to anyone in this meeting, be happy to do some follow up with you, or if we want to set up some subgroups of folks who may have similar questions, I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Elia? I hope I got your name correct. I'm sorry if I didn't.
No, that was great. Thank you so much for having this, and it's great to see familiar faces here and the representatives here as well. Yeah, I just had a question about if, considering that it's a big picture of the work that has to be done, are there any kind of established goals, outcomes, metrics around making sure that tribal communities and BIPOC communities are engaged throughout all those local kind of place making, place planning, locally placed, all those things, regionally based community engagement efforts that are done through all those different areas? Are there specific metrics, outcomes, goals to make sure that that happens? And I only name that because I know that it's work that people intend to do in the States oftentimes, but when sometimes like an attempt. Is there a way to make sure that it actually happens with what we have right now, since all these resources are being allocated for it right now? Thank you so much.
It's a great question. And I guess my response would be, we'll need to build some of those, but I would want to build those with those communities. And that wouldn't be something that we would just impose in those conversations. But I see it as an opportunity, both with the charge that we have for tribal engagement, as well as the Equitable Water Access Group and the BIPOC community. It's a real opportunity to engage with those communities and build those metrics together, in my mind. And so that would be my intention at this point, is it's a unique opportunity for us to really start at the foundation. Thanks for that question. Theo.
Yes, thank you. I'm the president of the Oregon Lakes Association and emeritus professor at Oregon State. Water is needed for people, plants, animals, and all of them in a circle to maintain everything, sustain everything into the future. So I heard a lot about communities. I assume you were meaning human communities. I'm really concerned that we think about the importance of water for sustaining ecosystems and landscapes. So I wonder if you could comment on that, please.
Thank you.
How that plays into the discussions you've had and the future decisions.
That's an excellent point, and I apologize that I didn't raise that sooner. From really, when I think about the importance of water, it's really around people's lives, people's livelihoods, and the environment. And that you stated it more eloquently than I can, but they're all interconnected. And securing a water future for any geography in the state of Oregon is going to need to look at that balance. And I know we have folks here who represent conservation issues. That's an important voice in those conversations. We have state agencies whose mission are focused on water quality or aquatic wildlife, and all those voices will be at the table and part of these conversations, which I think will enrich our dialogue and the decision making that we will have associated with recommendations from these groups.
Super, thank you.
Thanks for the question. Got about five or 6 minutes left, and maybe see if there's one more question, and then I'll ask the legislators if they have any closing remarks. Doesn't look like we're seeing any other hands. Rep. Helm, want to?
Yeah, thanks. I'll kick it off. So folks, Theo, thank you for that question. It's nice to see you in this room. And you point in the direction that I wanted to speak on just at the end. I got 3 points for you all. One is, this is a really big job. We're embarking on a really audacious piece of work. And we all know that when we've talked about water in the past, we come from different perspectives and different directions. That's fine. We all need to advocate for what we feel is important. The bigger picture, however, is that we are all concerned about the water future of Oregon. And as an issue, the goal is to elevate water to equal significance with some of the other state issues that have been in the prime time in the past, like education and healthcare. That's where water needs to be over the next few years so that we start the trajectory out right and we're able to put energy and money behind what we find here. So that's our job overall. Secondly, as Theo alluded to, we're all going to have to both acknowledge and value each other's concerns about water and some of the challenges that are associated. If we don't see each other in that light and take ownership of everyone's concern and challenge about water from whatever perspective, I don't think we'll be successful. So we have to take those concerns seriously, try to internalize them, and try earnestly and honestly to come up with solutions that work for all sectors. And the third and final point is, you saw the chart. There's a lot of work going on all at the same time. That is both a curse and a blessing. For those of you that draw a salary for this stuff, you're going to earn it. Get ready to participate in as many of those processes as you think are necessary for your organization, your point of view, your values. We need you, and we need your voice at all of those forums. And I'm not going to be apologetic about the amount. This has been a long time coming. We've got money to put toward these conversations and facilitate in a professional and effective way. Let's make the best of it. Let's make use of that time and money. And finally, again, thank you. Thank you for the work that you're going to do, that you did today to ingest this roadmap. And thanks for the work that you're going to do over the next 16 months and beyond. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. I'll hand it over to my colleagues.
Thanks, Chair Helm. Thanks, Tom. Thank you all for spending a few minutes with us this afternoon. Mary Ann, your comment aligned with some of the texts I got that, boy, you guys need some help with public participation. This forum was not supposed to be the design for the public participation. This was supposed to be what was going to happen during legislative days. We missed that opportunity, so we classified this as the grand opening. The rollout of the processes, the 30,000-foot elevation, was a little deeper dive into IWRS and the regional table. We will continue and commit to working together to figure out how to get everybody's voice, how to make sure we got the proper public participation at the right time. Director Byther has committed to us with whatever type of updates we need, whatever type of commitment that we can give him in order to make sure that we're working through this together. It is going to take all of us. We are in a water constrained environment. We cannot meet our current demands in part of the state, and we darn sure can't meet our future demands in part of the state. We're going to have to get creative. And as those of you who know me, I've been involved with the place-based planning for multiple years, and I honestly believe those creative solutions can happen at that regional, community, local level with partnership with the state to come forward with some creative solutions to some of the unique challenges that you all face and we all face collectively as a state of Oregon. And Theo, when I say community, that's just not economic. So that's also social and ecological. I mean, we could talk about the water cycle, but we won't go there. It's an exciting time. Look forward to the public participation. Please interact with all four of us. We are collectively in this together to try to make your voices heard and move us to the future. Thank you.
I just want to thank everybody for being here today and thank Director Byler and my fellow representatives for their work on this. And I think what I've taken from this is we are going to have to trust each other. I think there's a lot of questions we probably didn't hear today. And we're going to have to trust each other, work together on this, and we can make some some really wonderful things, life-changing things happen. So thank you, those of you that did ask questions, and look forward to hearing more from the rest of you as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, representatives, and thank you everyone for your time today. There's a lot more detail ahead, and good communication is going to be really important. We'll do the best we can to communicate with you as we go forward, especially as we launch these individual processes in the days and weeks ahead. In the meantime, thanks everyone for your time today, and we look forward to future conversations. Take care.